Good afternoon, Professor Nobel. First of all, let me greet you in Dnipropetrovsk Alfred Nobel University. It's a great pleasure to greet you here, and thank you for agreeing for this interview. First of all, you are an honorary guest of the International Congress organized and hosted by Alfred Nobel University. Organizers seek to answer the question of what role should be played by Nobel Prize laureates in various fields. What role should be played by Nobel Prize laureates in fields of peacekeeping and education? What's your understanding of the role Nobel Prize laureates could or perhaps even should play in the contemporary world?
Well, obviously, I mean, there are, as you know well as I do, that there are 5 or 5+1 prizes. So receiving the prize in physics doesn't necessarily make you a good spokesman for peace or chemistry or anything else. So I think that the laureate should only speak in the subjects that they feel that are competent and that is their background or their knowledge of. And too many times, unfortunately, the fact that you receive the Nobel Prize in your specialty, that makes you very famous, very, very popular around the world, and that gives you almost like an incentive or the ambition to speak about things that you have no idea about. So I would say that you have to, the laureate, the fact that he becomes in a place in the world as a very famous person, that does not give him the right to talk about things that he doesn't know too much about anyway. So, and also that the listeners, the auditor should not consider only because he is a Nobel Prize in medicine, it doesn't give him necessarily the expertise in another subject. That's all I'm saying. Actually, I have to tell you that I heard from, I won't divulge the name of it, but I heard from a source in a particular country which handles the peace prizes, that they consider the peace laureates are being very difficult to handle, because automatically, as soon as they receive the prize, they feel that they should create, there's something of a lasting heritage to themselves, and they create foundations and so on, and gives them also the expertise. All I'm saying is be careful a little bit that you don't interpret because of the fact that he's very famous as a laureate, he doesn't necessarily, or she doesn't necessarily know what in other subjects. That's all.
All right, thank you. I understood your point, but still we know that there are some, so to speak, boundary figures. Maybe that's not the correct expression. I mean, Sakharov, Nobel Prize in Physics, still great spokesman for peace. Or Linus Pauling, chemistry and
the Peace Prize.
So sometimes it works.
Yes, you are absolutely right, and there are shining examples of a duality in copper. And most, I must say, for 15 years I met all the Nobel Prize winners as the representative of the family in Stockholm, and I found most of them to be extremely competent, friendly, and also very intelligent. So, as you say quite rightly, the fact that you are but not all of them, out of the 700, unfortunately, not everybody is as competent as the examples that you mentioned. But you're absolutely right, some of them have this capacity. And I would also say that you don't need to be an expert in the field to have your own honest opinion on how to...
Absolutely right. Just because you are a human being, a citizen. Exactly. And speaking of expertise, this reminds me of so-called titans of Renaissance. I mean, now in the world of narrow fields of knowledge, narrow fields of professional specification or specialization, well, sometimes really we are pressed to say, look, this is your field of knowledge, this is your field of expertise, so remain where you are, stay put. But peace, that's so general, so universal, probably even a Nobel Prize winner in chemistry inside his or her ivory tower has a word or two to...
Absolutely. And I would also say that, you know, I was a researcher in mass communication, and I did my doctorate on, which was called drug abuse and drug abuse prevention in Switzerland. But the same thing with peace is that the fact that you need a good communicator. A communicator is very important, that he is acceptable to the public in general, you know, and that he is trustworthy, and you know, that he doesn't seen as belonging to a particular interest. So the fact that you have been elevated to the august rank of a Nobel Prize, in any case, will give you a status as somebody important. So people will listen to you, and then the credibility will be enhanced, and that is very important. Then you can come out with a message saying, you know, we want peace, and everybody will respect you for that. You don't necessarily have to be Bishop Tutu or Mandela or somebody else like that.
Yeah, but this brings the question of responsibility. I remember some figures, well, like Knut Hamsun. Yeah.
Hamsun, yes.
Great novelist, maybe one of the most important, maybe the most important Scandinavian writer of the last century, and still collaboration with the Nazis, some kind of even admiration for Hitler, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
And of course there is one more thing. They say everybody understands football, and maybe we are in danger of trying to say that everyone understands politics, everyone understands peace matters. Maybe sometimes just dangerous to take for granted all opinions, even uttered by Nobel Prize winners, because they're chemists.
That's my point.
Yeah, absolutely. So we made the circle sort of.
Yeah, so it's a good point you're making, and I think that throughout history, and not only Hamsun but others like Fritz Haber and those that are good laureates, but their inventions have been abused later on.
Absolutely.
And like DDT and you know, the fertilizer becoming poison gas, or becoming, you can use as explosives and so on.
Atomic weapon.
Yeah, atomic weapons. Exactly. That's a good point. Oppenheimer was firmly against it, and also Einstein. I even have a copy of the letter of Einstein saying, you know, that we have to be careful because this could be used to create a weapon of war so terrible that, etc., etc.
Famous words, maybe not so politically correct, but famous words of Oppenheimer: "We are all bastards now after Hiroshima," or maybe after first test explosion in Alamogordo, weeks prior to Hiroshima bombing. All right. That's really proves that the question of authority, of standing point, of background is very important and delicate one. The Nobel Prize is not just laurel wreath, it's just applauses and medals. That's responsibility and the necessity to find your own place in the process, so to speak.
But your point is well taken. If you are elevated to, shall we say, universal, shall we call it identification, you are a Nobel Prize winner, then you have to be careful that your words will not, or that your beliefs. And I met some of them, Nobel Prize laureates, and you go, man, you have no idea what on earth you're talking about. Absolutely. So again, out of 700 comes a number that are very, very good, and some of them are medium, and some of them are not so good. And simply you have to, in an audience, you have to be careful how you interpret what these persons are saying.
But irony is, the Nobel Prize of any kind is just so prestigious.
Exactly.
That an ordinary man's eye, oh, it's Nobel Prize.
Exactly.
This man should, by definition, make something.
Exactly.
or should mean business.
Exactly.
This guy just can't
lie or
just
distort the truth or something like that.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you very much for your substantive answer. I know that in 2007 the Michael Nobel Energy Award was announced by the Nobel Charitable Trust, one of whose co-founders you are. What's the idea behind this award, and what are the reasons why it hasn't been given to anyone as yet?
Mm-hmm. Actually, there is no longer any Nobel Charitable Trust. Mm-hmm. It was changed in name because we, exactly as you say, we decided, or we analyzed the situation. It was basically used to give we thought one of the greatest problems is with the use of or abuse of energy, of oil, non-replaceable or shall we say traditional energy, and we wanted to award the shall we call it the use of replaceable or renewable energy like sun, the wind, and
water,
and
maybe.
Exactly, the waves and so on. And so we decided 2 years later to change the name, which we did, to something today which is called the Nobel Sustainability Trust, which is instead more signifies what we intended to do. Intended to do with it, namely to award the shall we say the individual or the institution who during the preceding year has done the most to advance.
Almost like your grand uncle.
Well,
the most important addition or suggestion for their benefit of mankind.
Yes, exactly. And this is an important point, because what he said in his testament, that it should go to those people who during the preceding year has invented or developed something of the most benefit to mankind. Very important. So I, as the chairman, I'm no longer, but I'm chairman of the Nobel Sustainability Foundation, Trust Foundation in Zurich, I have come out and say, to some extent, this has not been followed, the conditions of the testament, because it is hard for me as a scientist to, some of them seems to be awarded to people for inventions that I can see no earthly use for the foreseeable future. And it seems to more coincide with the interest of the particular academy that is giving the prize. I can give you an example, as the mad cow disease, and the Prussinger, was given the prize because it was very interesting for people at the Karolinska Institute to do that particular. But as you know, there are very few people today, especially today, that are inflicted by this disease. So sometimes in physics, the discovery of the 135th subatomic particle doesn't necessarily mean that you will have a benefit to mankind. So I think it should be more stringent in the future. Should really look at what potential use is it. I was part of the group who, I didn't develop it, but we commercialized in nuclear magnetic resonance and turned it into magnetic resonance imaging, using that method for medical diagnostics. And it worked beautifully well, because I sold number 2 in the world to Italian research hospital in Milano, and today there must be 120,000 MRIs. Every hospital has one. So the benefit to mankind because of the soft tissue identification has been substantial. And they also got Nobel Prizes there, 3 times per cell and block for the NMR, and then Lauterberg and the other, they got the Nobel Prizes. So this is clearly, there is a benefit. But some of this chemistry and even medicine, I see no really reason for it to be given to see where is the benefit to mankind. So, and unfortunately, I've come out very strongly against the idea of some of these laureates in peace, which have been given peace prizes for reasons that I don't see where the benefit of mankind, or even followed, shall we say, literally the conditions of the testament, which was
reduction
of armies,
yes.
Organization of peace conferences,
yes.
and so on. So, I mean, these are very specifics, and they are sometimes given for reasons that are even, and I will shock probably some of the viewers by saying that even Mother Teresa, who's now become a saint, she's a wonderful person. She's a great social center operator, administrator. I don't really see where is her contribution to the conditions that my great-granduncle imposed in his testament. That's all I'm saying. So, but anyway, to come back to we are very much focused on renewable energy, and because this is one of the greatest challenges to mankind in the future. And what we are doing is we will give there's no Michael Nobel. We just invented it in the name because we cannot call it a Nobel Prize in energy. So we said it's my name, Michael Nobel, but nowadays it's just called the Sustainability Award, or we name it Sustainability Award, given by the Nobel Sustainability Trust. And that has been accepted by the Nobel Foundation, because we do not in any way want to be, how do I say, identified as part of the Nobel Prizes. We want to have our own award. Nobel Sustainability Trust gives out an award every year, to the ones, and that has been a lot of interest. You ask, why haven't we? Because in fact, we needed to change this thing, and starting next year, we will have received important support from certain national governments. They are building the first fund, which is from Monaco and Abu Dhabi, and United Kingdom, and hopefully also Canada, but also China has shown tremendous interest. I've been there several times. They want
I can
to
imagine,
incorporate, yes.
with China's energy needs.
Absolutely, energy and also pollution. But don't forget,
right.
That you're replacing polluting types of energy consumption with clean air.
Coal, first of all, maybe coal and oil. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is what we believe, that we will restart the process now.
Okay.
It was not very appreciated, quite rightly so, by the Nobel Foundation. So we changed and we obtained their agreement, and under these conditions we can do it. So we will start afresh.
I'd like to ask you a question of those criteria left behind by the world famous Alfred Nobel. Yes, the benefit of mankind, but what about pure science? Maybe awarding just Nobel Prizes for medicine, physiology or chemistry for all those pure scientists is not so bad thing after all.
No.
Maybe your great-granduncle was a little bit, if I permit to say, a little bit romantic or maybe utopian, trying to turn science into just a servant of mankind, improving human life day by day. Maybe this addition of just pure science is a reasonable thing to do.
Absolutely, that's a very good point, and I think this is perfectly true, that science in itself is not evil, it's not bad. It is what to do with the science and the discoveries that later on can go either way. It can be of great benefit to mankind or have the adverse effects. So, and science must go on. Whatever you decide, it will go on regardless
even without tangible benefits.
Exactly, without tangible benefits.
For the sake of discovering what's behind this hill.
Yes, and why? Because it's there. The hill is there, the mountain is there, the hurdle, the challenge is there.
Absolutely.
So that is enough for a scientist or
for a human being.
Yeah.
We are asking animals after all.
Yes, but as I said earlier today, I think that most people are not concerned. We are talking the old saying, the Maslow need hierarchy, that if you don't have bread and the roof over your head,
yes.
you don't care about the progress of mankind and these esoteric subjects. You are concerned of your own survival, which is, out of the 7.3 billion people on Earth, they are the main concerns of them are unfortunately not to add to the benefit of mankind, but to survive. and that is
I
sad.
understood, and this, of course, very, very serious point, and well, there is no arguing. One more question regarding the Nobel Peace Prize, maybe the most controversial one. Actually, two questions. First of all, I read carefully, of course, the testament of Alfred Nobel, and I just can't stop thinking that he wrote these lines in 1895 in Paris. And that was fin de siècle, late 19th century. 19th century's horizons, ideals, problems. Maybe, once again, avoiding all those who do not perfectly fit in all those three criteria established by Alfred Nobel is also quite natural thing. For instance, first Nobel Prize winners in the field of peace. Who are they? Politicians of some sort, or lawyers, or statesmen. Maybe all those newcomers, I mean opposition leaders, revolutionaries, so to speak, maybe this is just the sign of democratization of the world. Can you imagine somebody like Mandela or Albert Luthuli or Aung San Suu Kyi receiving Nobel Prize in 1902, for instance? No, just Theodore Roosevelt or somebody of this kind. I mean, what about this democratization of the world and Nobel Prize reflecting these processes?
Is that the question?
Yes.
I would say that rather than call it democratization, you call it what the Nobel Committee in Norway call an expanded or extended peace. The prize is in a much wider interpretation of what is on how to obtain peace. But nevertheless, there is conflicts, and the former chairman of the Nobel Peace Committee gave the prizes sometimes for me very strange reasons, without necessarily literally adhering to the basic principles of my great granduncle, but still, you know, you give it to, for example, to the European Union,
yes,
which are not well known for their peace.
Exactly.
They even talk about their own standing army and so on. They gave it to a certain U.S. president who was involved with two wars.
In advance.
In advance, exactly. So, I mean, there's not, and you give it to a certain young girl who, to my knowledge, haven't yet started. He wants to make people understand the need for women to be educated, to receive education, or to.
Pakistani girl, right?
How can you argue with that? I mean, I'm totally against. But and also, excuse me, but Al Gore, same thing with him. I mean, he's a great. We're talking about environment and the need, you know, the global warming. Great, but that's an expanded peace identification. What is peace? So.
All right. Thank you very much. A couple of questions. Of course, there is no denying that Alfred Nobel is the most famous of three brothers, Robert, Ludwig, and himself. Let's try do some justice to the rest, so to speak, of this trio, to the oldest, Robert, and Ludwig, and you are, of course, the direct descendant of Ludwig Nobel. So what's your opinion for what these two should be remembered for? Because we know that they are quite interesting persons, but what's your opinion of these two Nobel brothers?
I mean, I totally agree with you. For some reason, and I think mostly due to the fact of the Nobel Prizes, Alfred Nobel has become the world recognized. The Nobel. For most people, Alfred Nobel is the one that you recognize as a Nobel. Ludwig Nobel, in some ways, was a far better businessman, entrepreneur than Alfred was. Alfred never thought he was a businessman. He saw himself as a scientist. But if you look at the inventions, for example, of Ludwig, and even Robert had made significant advances in oil production and cleaning up the energy and the quality of it. Ludwig, introduced the oil tanker and introduced the diesel engines into Russia, because you were part of Russia at that time. So they were just as inventive. They were all of them brilliant geniuses. And that certainly includes both Robert and Ludwig. And my grandmother, Marta, wrote a very thick book about Ludwig. She felt that Alfred has already received enough everything. But Ludwig, no, it is amazing that he was just as good. He created a fortune. He was Russia's biggest enterprise, with 55,000 employees.
Baku, right.
In Baku, exactly, in Azerbaijan. And Robert also, we shouldn't forget, because he was supposed to find walnut tree for the guns, for the rifles. And he came and he saw the entrepreneur. You see an opportunity and you seize on it. And then this is very good, because this is exactly the three brothers represent what you need for a successful business today. And first of all, you need shall we call it, the entrepreneur or the inventor. He sees some opportunity, he grabs it. And then you need, after a while, you should let him go, because he's great at what he's doing there, but not as good as an administrator. So Ludwig took over that and developed it very rapidly into the second biggest oil company after Rockefeller's Standard Oil in Pennsylvania. And then you need a business angel, because this is typically what happens is the money runs out, liquidity decreases, and you need more money. Who was that? It was Alfred. Alfred coming in and supplying, not without sort of quarreling about it with with Ludwig or criticizing it, but he did, and he required 20%. So the Nobel Prizes today, 20% comes from Baku and from the Brown Nobel production. So I totally agree. I think it is almost a pity, and I think that we, for example, in China, if we decide to go ahead with the idea of creating a family Nobel museum, a very large part would go also to Robert's inventions, and to Ludwig, and to also Immanuel. The father was a brilliant inventor and a developer. Then he had no business skill, but he was the first underwater mine, the rotating lathe, the masonite, I think, the plywood, and so on. So all of these, they were a brilliant group of people, and not only Alfred.
Family. Actually, I listened to you and was thinking, it sounds like traditional fairy tale scheme, three brothers,
Yeah.
Three brothers.
But they were, and you said, what is the family doing today? Not much. This is the unfortunate.
It was my next and last question.
I see.
Yeah.
Please.
I
won't interrupt you. I'll let you get to the question.
That's all right. That's an informal conversation. Yeah. I was going to ask a question like this. You are obviously, speaking of popularity or renown, you are, in my mind, maybe the most famous, best known member of the Nobel family these days. But what is the Nobel family today? What are pursuits, goals, fields of interest of the rest of your family?
That's a very good question. I think this is the first time I've heard this question in the many interviews I've given, and I think that that you can't have several generations of shall we call it intellectual high capacity inventions and so on. So regretfully I say that there are not many in the family of 380 to 420, depending on how many people that come into the family, as you know, they're married into the family. And this is a big family, but I don't know anyone really that have made any significant contribution along the lines of the three brothers. And but on the other hand, if you look, for example, you know that the Nobelius was originally called Olofsson in the 17th century, and he moved to Uppsala, and he had the very good, the smart idea to not only to shorten his name Nobelius to Nobel, because, but also to marry Vendela. And she was the daughter to the rector of Uppsala University.
One of the most famous New York.
Absolutely, and he was absolutely brilliant. So it leads me a little bit, and I have to give a compliment to the ladies. The ladies are the ones that produce the intelligence genetically, that leads it on. And I would say that probably there were a genetic inheritance in some way from them, because it is unusual that you have four. But at the same time, the environment is very, very important. I mean, Alfred Nobel spoke 4 languages fluently when he was 16. This normally people don't, if you don't teach somebody anything. So, I mean, it's probably a combination of both. You can't have with a man or a woman with a very low IQ from beginning. You can try to teach or to educate, but it's a hard doing. Some of them are simply not made for it. And one of my greatest regrets is that there are probably tens of thousands of highly intelligent, qualified people around the world who never gets the chance to do it because they come from such an environment that there's no chance that they ever will be. I mean, we had some examples of that in England, that in India, for example, when the English had the empire, they found some, the shoemakers that were brilliant, and they had the good sense to bring them to...
But had no chance to enter any higher social strata.
And they had the natural ability to do things that were wondrous, but never got the chance to do it, yes, exactly.
Absolutely right. Well, thank you very much, Professor Nobel. It was very, very interesting to even for me personally. Thank you for the great pleasure to meet you here and to talk to you. Thank you.
Pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me. I enjoyed it, and I do hope that I will have the opportunity in the future to if not renew, at least to maintain the contact. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me shake the Nobel hand. Thank you.